Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Google Pixel Watch 1 and see how this particular watch holds up in 2025. Now, there's some really big things to keep in mind here. Number one, these Pixel watches, or really any watch you're going to go ahead and buy, they're still going to have a ton of capability. They're still going to have a lot of features built inside of them too. So I definitely want to go through and get that out of the way, because these watches still have a lot of capability. Even if you go through and buy the first Google Pixel watch that ever came out, you were still going to be having a really good time with it. And I do think that in and of itself is a really big thing to keep in mind. So with that out of the way, if you want to pick up a Google Pixel watch, links will be down in the description below. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Google Pixel Watch 1, the first thing to remember is that this watch really only came out in one particular size, and it really only came out in that bigger size model. So that was always something that was very surprising to me, that Google was only going to go through and put this thing out in, which was that 41mm size. So that was kind of in and of itself somewhat of like an interesting thing to keep in mind there. Now with something like this particular device, I do think, in my personal opinion, this is actually a very, very, good looking device still. The Pixel Watch 3 basically looks the same thing as this one. So there really isn't even that big of a difference here either, because they're both relatively the same thing when it comes down to it from that side. So I do think that is kind of, again, in and of itself, a very interesting thing to kind of keep in mind there from that particular side as well. You're still getting the buttons on the side of this particular watch too. On the back side, you have the ability of charging up this watch. And one thing that I've always liked about these watches was the fact that you can go ahead and change out the bands. Now, you can change out the bands of every single watch, it's not a new thing, but the ability of having the ability of going through and changing these bands out to really good bands, I like the ability of, I like the way you can remove the bands, attach bands, and I like the bands feeling, I feel like they feel better than some of the counterparts that I've, reviewed. So this was a really cool thing going on for this particular watch too. Now, this thing came out in a few different colors, which is really cool. The case itself was 80% recycled stainless steel, which is pretty cool too. So definitely this watch was built really well at 1000 nits of brightness, which is pretty common for a lot of 2022 phones. And I still think this thing holds up fairly well. Again, it may not be the most perfect watch of all time, but I do think Google did a really good job with this first generation of their watches. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that it still connects to all those, the current generation of Android phones. This thing still has a lot of features built in, and it connects and pairs very, very easily. And because it's still getting software updates, you're still going to be having a really good time with this particular watch when it comes down to it as well. So I would personally say from that standpoint, this watch also does a pretty good job from that standpoint too. So I think that is, again, in and of itself, another really cool thing going on for this particular device as well. Now, on top of that, another very big thing to keep in mind here too is that these types of watches, when it comes down to it, they're still going to be giving you a ton of features built in too. There are so many features built in inside of a Google Pixel Watch 1. There's a lot of things you can do within it. And if you've never had a watch before, you are going to be having a really good time with this type of device. You can check your notifications, you can check your heart rate, you can track your workouts, you can, access Google Maps and Google Wallet, YouTube Music, emergency SOS mode. You have a lot of cool things here built inside of this watch, which is really cool. And I do think, like I said before, if you're going to go through and pick up a watch, you're definitely going to be having a really good time with this particular device when it comes down to it. So, in my personal opinion, if I'm going to go through and pick up a watch, I do think a Google Pixel Watch 1 is still a very good option when it comes down to it. This thing is still going to be giving you a bunch of capability built in. It's still going to be holding up very well when it comes down to it. And I do think those are very important things to keep in mind here. So when it comes down to it, that's kind of how I see the Google Pixel Watch 1 holding up in 2025. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.